Morning. So, everybody have a good Thanksgiving. So, are you on turkey hangover? Yeah, so we got some truth. Yes. So, we're going to talk about something that I think is going to be important for everybody. It's interesting is listening this morning in the service and talking about pain. I heard about pain. Did you hear that? Did you hear about pain? Stan used the word endurance. That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. What is this thing, pain and endurance? How does it play into our walk? Is it important? Before we do that, though, I just want to look at you. Do you know I love you? This church is very special. I agree with Stan. This is divine. We're brought together, and you're loved. I love you, and I pray, God, that the words you've given me to share is a blessing on the hearts of those that are here today, Father. This is all about you. Amen. So, this message this lesson today is really part 2 of the one that I did several weeks ago on freedom. And I promise it ties together, and you'll be able to make the tie-ins. It's actually part 2 of that, and there's actually part 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like, you could teach on this forever. But I found it interesting. God's timing is always interesting, isn't it? So a couple of weeks ago, let's see who can remember. Daryl taught on, what was his topic? Trials. He taught on trials. Remember that? Trials. How many remember what Barbie taught on last week? Thankfulness and Thanksgiving, right? Led right into the holiday, right? Well, I have something that goes in between that. Between trials and Thanksgiving is this thing called endurance. And as we will look at this today, you will find that it plays an incredible part in your journey. Now, I don't know why. I really don't. I don't know why God makes endurance part of our journey, but I will show you throughout, He makes endurance as part to make you who He wants you to be. You will need endurance. You will need it. So, I want to go ahead and tell you the whole point of this message. The whole point. Okay, and then I'll just back into it. So the whole point is I want to talk about not just endurance in general. I want to talk about your endurance. I want to talk about your endurance. Okay, so I want to make sure that you know ahead of time that where I'm headed, everything that I say before I get to that part is all about your endurance. That's where we're going, is your endurance. Okay? Now, I also want you to know that I have pre-planned an event for us. So the praise and worship team will come back up, and we're going to stand up and we're going to praise together. And then I have an assignment for you as we dismiss. That's right. So as we dismiss, do you ever watch what happens when we dismiss? Some people go, some people fly out the door. But what usually happens? Who in this church today is going to do the lock up and turn the lights off? Tim, how hard is it to get everybody out of this building? And have you ever been one of those that hang around long enough that you start getting the lights flashed at you? Yeah, okay. So I want to just give you a little bit of intention around that time that we have at the end where we're hanging around each other. I believe that's a very important time of ministry. I will say this, it may be the most important time of ministry. I've heard Stan teach several times that there's ministry and fellowship. And sometimes I think we might overlook that or maybe think of it as more of an event when it's really kind of the way we behave. And I want to give you just some intention around today when we dismiss. So I want you to understand that this is where we're headed, okay? So why do we need endurance? Yep. And what's on that road? Lots of rocks. Starts with P and ends with ain. Pain. Pain. That's why you need endurance. Remove pain. You don't need it. You need endurance because pain exists. Pain is the problem. Pain is the problem. So this is not a message today about pain or the nuances of pain and how it works in your spiritual life. So I don't want you to get that. But I do need to share some facts about pain to get us to the point of endurance. Okay? So let's look at that for just a moment. So there's 4 facts about pain. Number 1, you're designed to resist it. We don't like it. We don't like pain. Here's some of the reasons why we don't like it. It's needed. Did you know that? Pain is needed, but we don't like it. Here's the reasons. It signals danger. We feel pain is danger. I got to tell you something. Getting older stinks. I'm finding parts hurt on me that's never hurt on me before, and I don't understand why they're hurting. And I don't know if it's signaling danger. The other thing about pain is it's not comfortable. Again, go back to aging is not a friendly thing. And it is emotionally negative. When you feel pain, you're usually probably not in the best of moods. It impacts you, doesn't it? It's okay. It's okay. We know this. Did you know God knows this too? So why does he allow it? What's happening here? So number 2, pain is subjective. The way you experience pain is not necessarily the same way I experience pain. I've known some people who have had incredible things happen, and they experience the pain differently. I think about when I was in 5th grade, we played soccer all the time at City Heights Elementary School. We played soccer all the time. And I wasn't very good, but I enjoyed getting out there and playing because I got to kick something. And so it just so happened this particular day, I kicked a little boy named Hank. I kicked him right in the shin. And he looked at me, and I kicked him hard. I wasn't aiming for his shin. I was aiming for the ball. Needless to say, I was not that good at soccer. And I kicked him right in the shin bone. And he looked at me, and he says, "You shouldn't have kicked me." And I said, "Well, I was aiming for the ball." And he goes, "Well, I'm going to kick you back." And I'm like, "Don't sing it, bring it." And you know what he did? He kicked me in the shin. It was in that moment I realized I have the most tender shins ever of anybody in the world. To this day, I cannot stand to hit my shin. But when I kicked him in the shin, he was cool, calm, and collected. I bet he had calluses that thick. He didn't feel it. He was mad because I kicked him, but he kicked me back. And either he was a much harder kicker than I was, or I experienced the pain different. And the reason why I think that that's important is because it's easy, and Stan was talking about it, it's easy to kind of get on the side of judging people when you're like, "Well, I've had that too, and this is what I did." Pain is somewhat subjective. And I'm going to say something that may be a little bit painful to hear. Some people find it hard to get up and come to church. It's a pain. I will say to you, endure. Endure. Amen. Get here. Start serving. It's worth it. But that's the reason why it's important. Number 3, pain. Now this is one right here. I'm going to tell you, we're not going to like to hear this, but I'm going to show you why it's true. Pain can become your God. I didn't say you want it to be your God. It can become your God. Pain is powerful. When Jesus was giving the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 6:25, and you can read this, but he says, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life." And we know this scripture very well. Don't worry about your life, what you will eat, drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more important than food, body, or more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. And you are not much more valuable. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying add a single hour to your life. And we know this. We know this about worrying. But did you notice everything that he listed in there? So food. If you don't have food, there's pain. If you don't have drink, there's pain. If you don't have clothing, there's pain. All these things are pain. And what he's saying in there, because what does he go on later to say? Seek first. Why? Because these things can become your God. They become your God. Each item on the list is a source of pain. Pain can become your central focus. If pain becomes your focus, who's not your focus? You didn't choose this God, but it can become your God. And it can become your motive for what you're doing. Your pain controls you. When you wake up, you think about it. Aging isn't fun. You feel it. When you go to bed, you feel it. And it's always present. Pain can become your God. Not the God you choose, but it can become your God. So you can't get caught up on that. And it's hard. It's hard. I'm not saying that's easy. Please understand, I'm not saying that's easy. It's hard. Number 4 facts about pain. Number 4, pain, and I don't understand this sometimes, but pain is a part of God's plan for your journey. It is. Sometimes it's hard to understand. But if you have pain right now, I want you to understand it's about your journey. So let me just give you this, okay? I'm going to read this to you. I'm going to try to read it quickly. So from the beginning, listen to God. Sometimes God knows what he's doing. Isn't that something? Sometimes. Sometimes he's got it figured out, Rodney. Sometimes. From the beginning, with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now listen to this. Abraham withstood 10 major trials. Twice, he suffered exile. Twice, his wife Sarah was abducted. The binding of Isaac, the sending away of his son Ishmael, war with the 4 kings, the prophetic vision of his descendants' enslavement and exile, Nimrod's attempt to murder him, and the danger of undergoing circumcision at an advanced age. That's pain. All right, how about his son Isaac? Persecution at the hands of the Philistines, underwent the trial of being bound as a human sacrifice, separation from his beloved son Jacob for 36 years, while his other son Esau was trying to kill him. Pain. How about Jacob? Jacob endured a life of physical and emotional hardship. He was persecuted by his brother, swindled by his father-in-law, his only daughter, Dinah, she was raped, and for 22 years he was mourned over his favorite son, Joseph, thinking he was dead. Pain. It's all pain. Clearly, the way God wants to teach us is through an experience of this pain. I don't understand it, but I am going to bring up a slide here. Bethany, if you'll pull, or Bethany, she's going to get me. Betsy, if you'll pull that up for me. And I just want to show you this. So this, and I just want to walk you through this real quick as we transition into endurance. Okay? So there is a path of pain. Here's the reality that you have. You see over here on the left-hand side, pain? It's there. You're not going to get around it. You're not going to get by it. It's got to follow some path. Okay? Because it's there. It's a constant. You're going to have pain. But pain will go down one of 2 roads. The pain that goes upwards is when you apply endurance to your pain. When you apply endurance to your pain, which is God's way of your pain, the road is narrow. The road is narrow because it's hard. But when you apply that, the end result is discipline, perspective, and reward. Now, pain without endurance applied follows a much broader path and probably more common path. Notice that when it's not met with endurance, it follows the path that eventually leads you to chaos. It leads you to discouragement and ultimately leads you to destruction. Now you have to set that path of pain. Your pain has a purpose. Your pain has a purpose, and you have to set that path, whether or not you're going to set it on the path of endurance or without endurance. That's a choice to make. That is up to you. So, I want to lead up to, remember, the whole point that we're leading up to is your endurance. Your endurance. So when we look at endurance, I want to cover 3 things with you. Number 1, what endurance is not. Number 2, what endurance is. And then last, your endurance. So number 1, 3 things endurance is not. Now think about this for just a moment. Endurance is not a gift. I can't give it to you. I can give you love. I can give you forgiveness. I can give you peace. But I can't give you endurance. Endurance is not something somebody gives to you. It's something somebody pulls out of you. I can't give it to you. It's not a gift. When I look at Romans 12, 6 and 8, it's not a gift of the Spirit. I see prophecy, I see serve, I see teach, I see encourage, I see giving, I see leading, but I don't see endurance. But yet endurance is so important for our walk. But I don't see it there. Number 2, it is not a physical quality or ability. Did you know that? Endurance is not, it does not qualify as a physical quality, and it does not qualify as an ability because you are not born with it. Did you know that? You're not born with endurance. And endurance is unique to humans. It's unique to humans in the way God designed us. Animals will not persist at a task any longer than 20 minutes. But yet you give a human a purpose. Remember freedom and purpose? You give humans a purpose. What will we endure? Things change. God designed this for you. Endurance was not designed for animals. Endurance was designed for you. Pain is experienced a certain way in animals. Pain is supposed to be experienced different for you. Number 3, now this is important to understand. Number 3, endurance is not a strength. It's not a strength. Now, strength is important for endurance, but it is not endurance. Think about it. Think about Job. Do we think about Job and we admire him because of his strength? Or do we admire him because of his endurance? It's the endurance. Now, strength is an important part, and we're going to come to that, but endurance is not strength. So what is this weird thing called endurance? What is this? Well, let me tell you. I'm going to give you 5 things that endurance is. Okay, so 5 things that it is, and then we're going to get to your endurance. In Hebrew, endurance is made up of 2 words. Koach, K-O-A-C-H, means strength, and sevel, S-E-V-E-L, which is to bear or suffer. It's those 2 words together. Romans 5, 3 through 5, shows this in relationship when Paul speaks of suffering combined with endurance equals hope. We all know that one, okay? But he's speaking to that Hebrew basis of the words of strength and suffer. So you can't have endurance without both at play. So think about it. So endurance is, number 1, a relationship. It's a relationship. It is a relationship between your strength and your suffering. That's what endurance is. It's this relationship. Now, let's think about it. If you have high endurance, what's stronger in that relationship? Strength. If you have low endurance, what's stronger in that relationship? Where does your strength come from? Number 2, it is odd, talking about endurance, it is odd, but mostly aligns with the skill. So we talked about what endurance is not. What endurance mostly aligns with is the definition of a skill. Here's why, 3 things. It can be acquired. Endurance can be acquired. How? Practice. What else? Starts with a P and ends with aim. can be acquired through pain. Next thing is, it can be practiced. Did you know that? Did you know endurance can be practiced? How can it be practiced? With pain. And it gets stronger as it is used. These are all qualities of a skill, and endurance aligns mostly with the skill. It gets stronger as it's used. How does it get stronger? Through pain. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, endurance is necessary. God has made endurance necessary for you to complete His work. Now, here's where another thing gets a little sticky and gets sometimes, I don't want to say hurt feelings. It can get people mad, though. So let me just give you. Hebrews 10:36 says, endure so when you have done God, and this is a paraphrase here, but endure so when you have done God's will, you will receive what is promised. So what is God's will? So let me say this again. God has made endurance necessary for you to complete His work. God's work, and this is the part that's going to get a little sticky. It's going to hurt. This right here is, like I say, can make people mad. God's work is not about your salvation, but it does start with it. Your salvation, the work's not done. There's still more to do. There's a lot more to do, but it does start there. It's a good start. Well, let's just look at it. Let's just look how Paul was teaching Timothy this. 2 Timothy chapter 4. Paul's teaching Timothy literally about endurance. So if you look at it, and starting in verse 5, it says, now look at these words here. This is Paul, again, teaching Timothy. But you, keep your head in all situations. Endure hardship. Why do I endure it? Do the work of an evangelist. Why am I enduring this hardship? Because there's work to be done. You don't retire from being a Christian. You still have a lot of work to do. I don't care how young you are, how old you are. You don't retire from being a Christian. There's still a lot of work to be done. And he says, so endure the hardship. Listen, again, as you get older, I think there's lower hardships in some areas and a lot more hardships in other areas. But endure them, because our job is to evangelize. Now, when you read on, you realize in verse 7 he says, he finished the race. So if we look at that, he says, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. What did he not say about the race? He didn't win it. He didn't win the race. So what kind of race is this? Survival? He finished it. What did he finish? The work. He finished the work. Did he say, I finished my salvation? No, he finished the work that God had given him. Amen. He finished that. Are you? Where are you at in this race? Listen, you're not going to win the race, but you can finish it. What work have you been given by God? What work is that? That's your race. Run it, and run it well, and finish it. Finish the race. So number 4. So that was number 3. Number 4, intentional endurance. Now this is important. This is just life lesson. I'm sure we can dig in and find a lot of scriptures that will tie to this, but I just want to give it to you as a life lesson. Intentional endurance is better than accidental endurance. Don't wait to realize you need endurance. It's a lot better to have endurance stacked up, so when life hits you right square in the face, you're ready for it. Than to get into that situation and realize you've got a little bit of endurance but not quite enough. That's called accidental endurance. And I'm going to illustrate that by a story that happened to me several years ago. I was on a business trip, and this business trip, the director decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to take everybody out onto the lake. P.S. I hate those kind of business trips, but we're going to take everybody out onto the lake. Onto a pontoon boat. We're going to take you out there. We're going to have a good time. In my mind, I'm thinking, I like the people I work with, but I don't want to spend a day on a boat with you. Anyway, we're out there on the boat, and he brings a jet ski. Brings a jet ski with him. So I'm going to give you 3 facts about this instance. Number 1, I had never ridden a jet ski. Number 2, I told them I have never ridden a jet ski. Number 3, I was a good 100 pounds heavier than what you see right now. So those 3 things combined created a very interesting situation for me. They continued to pressure me to, oh, Kevin, you got to get on this jet ski. You got to get on this jet ski. You got to get on this jet ski. And I watched and I was like, how hard can this be? You get on a jet ski, how hard can it be? You give it gas and you go. And I was watching everybody have a good time. Like, oh, Kevin, you're the only one to get on this jet ski. And I was like, okay. So I got on the jet ski. And so you know what? It was fun as long as I was going straight. So as I went straight, I was doing really, really well. And I realized that when you turn a jet ski, what do you must remember to do? Lean and continue on. So number 1, I did not lean. Number 2, I let off. So guess what happens to Kevin? I fall in. So guess what they did not teach me? How to get back on. So number 1, they didn't teach me how to turn the thing. Number 2 is they didn't teach me how to get back on it once you fall off of it. Now, everybody else's luck may be different than mine. You may have fell off 10 feet from the boat. I was half a mile away. I couldn't even see the boat. And so now I'm out here in the middle of this water with this jet ski, and I'm like, now what am I supposed to do? Well, it had a rope on the front of it, so I thought, well, I can't leave this jet ski out here. And I have a life vest on, so I'm like, I'm just going to have to just try to swim somewhere. So I hook my arm in there, and I get to going. I get to pulling this thing. And you know what? People are genuinely good. They are. But not on that day. There was boat after boat that was just going by and just pointing at me. Like, look at that Nimrod. And as I'm pulling the jet ski along. They're like, doesn't he know he's supposed to ride that thing? You know, I'm sitting there pulling it. I get back to the boat. I finally get there. Swim the whole way, never could figure it out. I tried, by the way, several times, and that's very comical, imagining it rolling over that thing several times, trying to get back on it. I get back, and I was exhausted. I didn't want to talk to anybody. All I want to do is get on shore and get to my room and not talk to anybody. But I did have one thing to ask them. I stopped by and I said, hey, that part of me saying, I have never ridden a jet ski, that didn't trigger anything for you? That didn't trigger like, hey, maybe we should tell him a few things. Because clearly it did not. Now, what I had discovered in that moment was accidental endurance. I made it. I made it. But you know what would have been better? If I was intentional about it. If I would have known. Maybe lost 100 pounds before I got out there. I don't know. But intentional endurance would have been a lot better than accidental endurance. So you may have endurance you don't know about. You might. But I will tell you, if you find it by accident, it's not quite as good as having intentional endurance and going at life proactively. But God will help pull it out of you. So the third thing is, the fifth thing. The fifth thing is, while endurance cannot be given, and I said that earlier, endurance cannot be given. It's not something I can give to you. I cannot look at you and say, I can tell you need more endurance. Here you go. I can't. There's not a way I can do that. So while it cannot be put into you, it can be pulled out of you. And it can be pulled out of you with pain. James 1:2-4 says, count it a joy when you have trials, and the endurance you practice will mature you. And that's kind of a paraphrase. You see, God doesn't just want you to survive your race. He wants you to be strong. And the only way he can make you strong is to pull out of you what he put in you. And that is that endurance. Remember, you got suffering and you got strength. Where does our strength come from? If you think it's coming from you and you think you're going to have that level of endurance that you need to stay on that path, try. It's hard. But when your strength comes from him and he creates a bigger purpose in you, it's different. And I think about this one right here. I just want to pause on it, and then I want to get to the last thing. So I think about this one right here, and I think that this is very parental. Jacob, my son, hasn't been driving real long, has had no major accidents, thank God. But he's had some minor ones. So we have a carport. And it was just a, metal carport, nothing fancy. And we was having him park his car under there. And he found that carport with his front bumper. And I'm like, son, what if that had been somebody else? You go through all the parental things. And I'm like, mind you, this is not a major scratch, but you're going to pay to have it fixed. You're going to pay. You could go, it's not going to do anything to the car, but I'm going to make you pay to have it fixed. So he goes and pays to have it fixed. Pain. I wanted him to learn, but he didn't. So my son-in-law, Brandon, builds us, I will say, the nicest carport ever known to man. Big logs going up, copper metal roof, just beautiful, beautiful carport. And Jacob starts parking under there. And guess what he finds? The carport. Guess what he finds it with? His front bumper. No, just the same place, no big deal. And so I said, Jacob, you did it again. Has God ever told you that? You did it again. You did it again. So I said, now you're going to pay for that. You're going to pay for any damage you've done here, and you're going to pay for the damage on your car. Endurance. So I find number 5 very parental, because now when I watch Jacob pull in, it takes him 45 minutes. He does make it into the carport, and he does not touch a single thing, but it takes him a long time to get there. So while endurance cannot be given to you, God will use pain and suffering to pull it out. Why did God choose to do it that way? I do not know. But what I will tell you, in your walk, your pain has a purpose. When you're a believer, your pain has a purpose. So now I want to talk about you specifically. Your endurance. And things you may or may not know. But I've watched in this family right here, in this church, you. I've watched you. So 3 things about your endurance. Number 1, your endurance is necessary to complete your work for God. Your endurance. You have a work. Everybody in this room has a work. Not just your salvation, which is a critical part, but you have a work. What is it? You're going to require endurance to complete that work. You're going to get knocked down, you're going to get kicked, and you're going to have pain. But know where your strength comes from. You know, that strength makes you want to jump up on the rooftops. When you find that strength, you want to climb up on the rooftops and you want to shout it out, don't you? Because you realize that strength's not coming from you or any source in this world. It's coming from somewhere else. It's a choice. Your endurance is a choice. You don't have to like it. We don't like the pain. God doesn't say, hey, enjoy it. Have a good time with that pain. Here's a little extra pain for you. Enjoy it. Have a good time with it. He doesn't say that, but he does ask you to endure it. It is not a nice to have. As I said earlier, there is no good time to be a retired Christian. You don't retire from the Christian work. If you've slowed down in your race, I'm going to say serve. Serve. Find a way to serve and speed it up. Speed it up. You still got work to do. Speed it up. Let's get it done. Let's get it done together. You know this race that we run, I'm not running against you, but I'm running beside you. Let's run this race. This group right here, commit to one another. You give me 50 people that's committed to one another, that's committed to God, it's unstoppable. But you got to have a high commitment to one another and a high commitment to God. Unstoppable. Your endurance, this is number 2. Did you know your endurance is encouragement? Somebody's seeing you. Somebody is seeing you. It is a testimony to somebody. I need your testimony. I listen to you. I've watched you. Some of you have went through things that in my world seems unimaginable. Maybe I've experienced some things that you think are unimaginable. Maybe. But when we see each other still continue our work, nothing's stopping us from our work. We will not stop working for God. We will not stop doing His work. It encourages me. Did you know your endurance is a testimony? It's a testimony. Number 3, did you know your endurance is worship? You're not enduring in silence. Your Father sees you. Your Father is proud of you. He sees you doing as His Son commanded, and He's proud of you. Matthew 5, 10, 12, and Jesus says this, you're blessed to be persecuted in my name. Rejoice, your Father is storing up rewards in heaven for you. I don't know why God chose to use the strength and suffering to pull us, to make us what we need to be. I do not know, but I do know that He's proud of you when He sees you doing it. I do know He's proud of you when you lean on Him for your strength. And you don't lean on man, and you don't lean on things, but you lean on Him for your strength. I do know that. And I do know that there is rewards for you. Oh, you may not see them today, and they may not be physical, but they're happening. You're getting rewards. So now I'm going to ask the praise and worship team to come up. And these are no surprises. Everything that I said that I was going to do, I already told you. So this is no surprise to you, but I am going to ask that they sing this particular song. And the reason why is because I think to overcome pain, sometimes you just need a little energy. You need to know that your strength doesn't come from this world. It comes from your Father. And that strength makes you want to shout it from the rooftops. Shout it from the rooftops. And they're going to sing this song. And after they're done singing this song, I am going to dismiss you, but I'm going to ask something of you in dismissal. Is that okay? Okay. So let me give you something in conclusion here as they get ready. You will experience endurance when? Now here's how you know you're experiencing endurance. Like, how do I know I'm having endurance? You'll experience it when what's inside of you is stronger than what's on the outside of you. We all know 1 John 4 and 4. One of my favorites of all time. You, dear children, are from God and had overcome the world because the one who is in you is greater than the one who's on the outside of you. Now, my dad used to have a method at the end of many services where this would be a pep rally. And he would use the scripture and he would say, we're going to personalize it. And you're going to say, I am of God. I am an overcomer because greater is He that is in me. Where does your strength come from? Greater is He that is in me than he that is in the world. Out here is a lot of suffering. Your physical body has a lot of suffering. But the strength that is inside of you, the God that's inside of you, is greater than anything on the outside of you and anything that you can experience. But God's got to pull that forward. And He's going to pull that forward through trials and tribulations. That's just the way it works a lot of times. It just happens. Sometimes we come in contact with many, many blessings. And I love it when God gives it to me that way. But I have found that that's often not how He wants to give that to me. He wants to take me through trials and tribulations and experience pain. But He gives my pain a purpose. And your pain has a purpose. You're not experiencing it outside of God. He's there with you every step of the way. So, endurance is strength over suffering. It is purpose over pain. It is the will of our God to make us overcomers. Your endurance is not about your suffering. Everything that we talked about sounded like it was about your suffering, but it's not. It's about recognizing where your strength comes from. Where does your strength come from? So, I'm going to ask you guys to sing this song. I'm going to ask everybody to stand up. Let's go ahead and get ready and shake it off. Shake it off. If you want, do this. Think about the pain and the trials and the tribulation that's standing before you, or maybe you're enduring right now, and you just tell that stuff, listen, I'm about to give some praise, and I'm about to knock your block off. Like the praise that I'm about to give to my Father, you will see where my strength comes from. It doesn't come from man. It doesn't, you're not going to beat me. You can kick me, and you can knock me down, but you're not going to knock me out. And so get ready to praise. Where does it come from? Can you shout it from the rooftops? Do you want to?
Yes.
Do you want to? So I'm going to ask something of you. I'm going to ask them to sing it again as you are being dismissed, but I'm going to ask something of you. There are people in this church who have lost children but have endured. There are people in this church who have had major operations like hip replacements but have endured. There are ones in this church who have lost loved ones and lost moms and dads, but have endured. There are some of you that have had cancer, but you've endured. There's some of you who have illnesses and hurts and pains in your life right now, but you're enduring. There are some of you who have broken your elbows, but you're enduring. What I want you to do is you got a choice of one of three things. Number one, and this is in dismissal, find someone whose endurance has been encouragement to you and go to them and tell them. You know why it helps somebody endure even more? When you tell them that it meant something to you. Number two, find someone you want to provide encouragement to endure. Maybe you know they're going through a tough time and you need to give them encouragement and let them know it's okay, you can endure, you can make this. Did you know that makes a big difference? I'm going to pray for you that you will be able to do that. Or number three, if you don't know anybody and you're like, yeah, I really don't know these people that do that, well then just find someone you can love on. Just find them and love on them for a minute. Don't rush to love. Just love on them for a minute. All right, so we're going to sing it one more time. Okay? Someone say a blessing over you. You are dismissed. I asked one of those three things. You can do all three if you want to. If you're an overachiever, you can do all three. And I'm going to ask them, sing this song. And think about the rooftops that you're going to scream from. There is no pain, there is no suffering that's greater than the strength that you find inside of you that comes from your living God. Heavenly Father, thank you for this family that I love. Thank you for allowing me any opportunity to serve them. I pray, Father, a blessing over each person in this room, that they find a purpose for their pain, that they know that their pain, God, is only bringing them closer to you. This endurance that you have in our walk, I pray this blessing over them, Father. In your name, amen.